If you're sitting on a chair, you're going to compare the sitting bones on the right side versus the left side. If you're laying down, you're going to compare the right heel to the left heel, the right hip to the left hip, the right shoulder to the left shoulder. And just notice if one area is more noticeable, if one area is closer to the floor, off the floor, more tension, less tension. What kind of information you can gather by laying down. And then notice how much tension you hold on and where. Where is your contraction and the holding on to be able to either lie down or to sit in the chair? And if you were asked to let go, do you have any clue what to do? Do you need to kind of spread around? Do you need to exhale into the area? Do you need to wiggle? What is it, your habit or your way of giving your brain a signal of letting go the holding, the habitual holding? And as you're laying down, think about lengthening one leg out of the hip and bringing it back into the hip. And notice which leg you're doing it. The legs are straight. If you are sitting, you're going to get one knee in front of the other. You're going to move the thigh on the chair so one knee is going in front of the other. If you're laying down, one leg is lengthening and shortening. And notice that getting the leg out of the hip includes the hip, so the hip is actually moving down with the leg and coming back into place with the leg. And if you keep on noticing more, if you put your fingers on your waist, you're going to feel that there is movement in your waist area. Maybe even a little bit in your rib cage area. Allowing the lower ribs to move and making that cage very more flexible and more like a basket that weaves rather than metal. And if you have one leg shorter than the other, notice which side you chose to work with. And rest. And let go. If there's any tension in the knees, let them go. If you're holding tension in your feet, let them go. And notice the difference between the two sides. If you have your toes pointing out, make the toes go straight up on the leg that you worked with. If your toes are looking up, make the toes go out. And now we're going to do the same thing, pulling the leg out and pulling the leg in with the toes in the different position. So now you are directing the bones in a slightly different way than you did before, and notice how much it feels different in the lower back, how you organize the muscles and they're working completely different just because you changed from your habitual way to a different way. If you're sitting on the chair, you're doing the same thing. You either, if you had your toes pointing forward, you get your toes to go to the side, so the knee will go to the side. Where is the difference? Have you changed the organization to be able to do it in a different way? Does it take more effort? Or does it make it more pleasurable? And let it go and rest. Again, compare between the two sides and notice what you have to do to let go. Are you able to let go? The message from the brain to either hold on or not to hold on, that transmission, that telephone line, do you feel safe enough to let go the holding? And we're going to go to the opposite side, the side that you did not do yet. So you start with your habitual position of the foot, and you're lengthening the whole leg out of the pelvis and back into the pelvis. If you are sitting, the knee will go forward and the sitting bones will move forward and back on the chair. If you're laying down, your whole pelvis move down towards the foot movement and up towards the shoulder as you're going out, lengthening, and up, back in. Is it super hot in here?
No. I'm not hot.
No?
It's just warm.
Okay. So you're lengthening and shortening. How much of your ribs are participating on this side? And let go. And again, what do you need to do to let go? Nothing, wiggling, changing position, sending a message from the brain to the body part. And now we're going to change the position of the foot. So if it was out, it will come forward. If it was forward, it will come more out. And we're going to lengthen and shorten. And notice if you're doing it on exhale, on inhale, or you're holding your breath. I suggest you do breathe and play with it and see if maybe exhaling on the movement forward or inhaling on the movement forward make it easier. Which one makes more sense to your system? And play with it. It's just different options that may open up a window of opportunities for the nervous system to feel more comfortable. And let that go. And I'm not going to suggest to point the foot inwardly because that's not very useful in the organization of movement, walking, sitting, getting up. It is a possibility, but I'm gonna skip it today. Now go ahead and put your legs close together, and we're gonna move from right to left. We're gonna lengthen the right and we're gonna shorten the left, and we're gonna go from side to side with the legs close together. So you're lengthening and shortening.
Thank you.
And rest. And now open the legs to your hip width apart. And keep on moving in and out. And notice if it makes more sense to the organization and transmission of the movement into your lumbar area. And maybe you can feel it all the way to the opposite shoulder. Try not to bend the knee, because we're trying to get the leg movement to get all the way through the body, all the way up. And rest and let go. And what does let go mean now? Has anything changed in the ability to let go? I always wondered with those slogans of, to do something and you really don't know how to get there. It's like, okay. And now open your legs a little bit wider than your hip width apart. So you are in a V shape. And do the same thing and see if this is easier or harder. Which place makes more sense? The legs really close together, the legs hip width apart, or a little bit wider than hip width apart. Obviously we can do all of those, but which one feels the best organization for transmission of the movement where the body moves as a whole? Think about yourself as an ancient salamander crawling on the floor, and picture your spine now responding to the leg movement. Can you feel the vertebrae going from side to side? Can you feel your shoulders moving because your legs are lengthening and shortening? The size of the movement is really not important, but can you feel that transmission from heel to shoulder via the lateral movement of your spine? Have your arms on the side on the ground, relaxed, and see if your arms are starting to lengthen and shorten because of the movement of the shoulders, because of the movement of the spine. Can you feel an inkling to lengthening and shortening the arms? As small as it is, what we're looking for is the neurological connection, the making sense to the brain. Can you feel the movement side to side on your skull? If you're sitting on a chair, you won't be able to, but maybe on the floor you'll be able to feel how your skull is actually shifting position. And let it all go. Poof. And just have your imaginary eyes hanging on the ceiling, looking down, and notice how your body is relaxing into your chair or into your mat. The area that was more noticeable 20 minutes ago, what does it do now? Do you still have to wiggle or move to let go? Or are your muscles more willing to give in to the hard floor? And go ahead and drag one leg up so the foot is standing and the knee is facing the ceiling. And then drag the other leg from the knee up. Drag it until the foot stands up and the knee is facing the ceiling. So now we have the feedback of the floor to come up through our feet. So just make friends with the way that your foot is touching your mat. How much of your foot do you feel placed on the floor? Which area of your foot do you feel most clearly? And start pressing the heels into the floor, both heels into the floor, and notice what happens to your pelvis. And let go really gently. Press the feet into the floor and allow the weight to transmit through your thighs into your pelvis. I like to have pictures in my head, and I know what, when I think about it, I think about a dog and lifting the tailbone just gently up, and the hip is curling. So we don't have much of a tail. But think about, like, maybe if we had a tail between our legs and the tail goes straight up towards the ceiling between the knees, the heels are going into the floor. So don't lift your pelvis because I said that the pelvis will roll. See if the pushing of the heels into the floor transmits the weight and the pelvis rolls and the tail can come higher into the ceiling, towards the ceiling. And it's not about succeeding, it's about trying to find the suggestions that I'm saying and see if it makes sense to your nervous system. Just to do an exercise because I said so will send you home with absolutely no addition to what you already know. So we're using the floor for strengthening, for pushing the heels into the ground, using the thigh muscles that are nice and strong, and now the pelvis can start moving, and you may feel your lumbar flattening into the ground. And let go. Notice if one leg pushes harder, very, very gentle. So it's not an exercise of effort. It's not I'm exercising. I'm pressing the heel and I'm curling the pelvis. I'm pressing the heels, and in this case, also the heels of the hands, and you're finding that curling of the pelvis. It's not about necessarily lifting high. It's just finding the connection from the legs to the pelvis. So notice that your left foot is a little bit turned out. Also try it both completely straight, completely out,
Okay, one now.
and play with it and see how that maybe the turning out makes it a little bit weaker. And start finding which one makes the most sense. And the people that are laying down, we're going to start using the whole foot, the heel and the toes. And press the feet into the floor and allow your pelvis to roll and have the pelvis now hanging. Not really high, it's not an exercise, just have it hanging. So the legs, the feet can hold you. And in this position, we're going to lengthen the thigh out of the hip and bring it back. And lengthen the other thigh out of the hip and bring it back. If you need to rest, you go down. But if you can keep the pelvis just kind of hanging from knee to ribs, then you keep on working on lengthening from the knee and coming back in, from the knee and coming back in. And notice how different both sides are. When you go with the right, does the hip go directly with the thigh or does it drop? When you go with the left, does the hip goes with the thigh or does the opposite hip drop? See if you can keep them parallel or at least notice what's happening. And after you become aware of what's happening in your pattern, then see if you can maybe find a way to work with both sides more equal. So there's no dropping in the pelvis down, but it goes directly with the legs. You can put your fingers on your ASIS, on the ilium here in the front, and see if you can sense that walking sensation. Anytime you need to come down and rest, go ahead and come down and rest. It's not a marathon. So we're going forward and forward without dropping. Forward, keeping the pelvis at the same height. You see how this one is dropping? Mm-hmm. That's the pattern of the leg wanting to go in. So this is what you want to become aware and see if you can strengthen that area. Okay. Gentle. So you're going to be here and you're going to be walking without letting the knee fall in. Completely forward and forward without letting the knee go in. Forward and forward. Forward and forward. So I'm trying to create a straight line from my thigh to my hip. So I'm very strongly on my arms. And forward without letting the knee go in. There you go. And slowly go down and lengthen your legs and take a break. And again, imaginary eyes on the ceiling, looking down. Where is relaxation? Where is tension? What do I have to do to allow my muscle to give in to the floor, to become friendly with the floor? And at this point, we're gonna come up, we're gonna sit closer to the wall, and we're gonna put our feet as if we're on a chair. So you're gonna scoot closer to the wall somehow. And the height of the legs is as if you're sitting on a chair. So you're trying to create a 90 degree. The distance between the feet is your hip width, not somebody else, your hip width. And we're going to press the feet into the wall and transmit the weight up the spine and let go. So now it may go a little bit further than just the hip. And again, push the feet into the floor and feel how you are sliding up your spine all the way through between your shoulder blades, all the way to your neck. And does your head start looking forward? Does your back become a little bit like a C, the letter C? Does it start curving? Like a ball. And again, push the feet into the floor and start moving up the spine, ironing. And let go. So your feet will be on against the wall. I think you can get a little bit closer with the tush.
Okay.
There. Can you feel it going all the way up towards your spine and to your cervical spine, to your neck? Yes, no?
Wait, what? Say it again?
When you push your feet into the wall,
Uh-huh.
do you feel the weight transmitted up the spine,
Mm-hmm.
all the way up towards your neck,
Mm-hmm.
and the chin is getting a little closer to your chest?
Mm-hmm.
And let go. And now push only the right foot. And notice what happens. Again, push the right foot and notice what happens to the weight. Does it go to your left shoulder? Are you getting a diagonal between the right foot to the left shoulder?
Mm-hmm.
This is the pattern of walking. It crosses On the second vertebra of your lumbar, where you put your belt, around your belly button. And now the hip turns. So when you push the right foot forward, the right hip moves forward with the leg, and you feel the left shoulder anchoring into the ground. And let the right side rest. You can either drop your feet into the floor or keep them on the wall, whichever feels better. And then bring your feet back into the wall if they're not there. And we'll start pressing the left foot into the floor. And slowly feel how the weight is being transmitted through your body all the way to your right shoulder. And then gently bring it back down. And again push with the left into the wall and allow the weight to swim up towards the right shoulder. And notice how your left hip is going forward with the leg. Is this side easier? Is this side harder? And rest. Slide your legs maybe. Let your brain just take it in. In your mind's eye, just rehearse the movement. See if you can feel the sensation without doing it. Just feel the sensation of the pressure into the wall, which is like a pressure into the ground, being transmitted up the leg into the pelvis, crossing over to the other side of the torso, all the way up to the opposite shoulder. And then rehearse the same thing on the other side. See if you can feel the sensation of the foot pressing and the weight being transmitted through the thigh, into the pelvis, across, all the way up to the opposite shoulder. And bring your leg back to the chair position. And you guessed it right, we're going to go from right to left. You find the rhythm that makes sense for you to complete a step all the way up to the shoulder. And when on the way down, does it make sense for you to cross over and start pushing with the other leg? So your job now is not to walk as fast as you can and not create an exercise, but to find out what would make sense for your nervous system on the way down from one side, when to start the next. How do I transition from right to left without losing any of the connection to the wall and to the opposite shoulder? How do I integrate my whole body into walking. Allow the sensation of the foot on the wall to give you the feedback that you need, and the shoulder to the back of the chair or to the ground to give you the feedback that you need. And picture your lumbar area, the belt area, as the place where the transition happens from right to left, where the pelvis starts moving forward and back in a rhythm that actually feels good rather than an effort.